The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. Before this book begins, I want you to stop for a second, not to settle in, not to get comfortable. I want you to stop and ask yourself something honestly. Why are you here? Maybe someone recommended this book. Maybe you stumbled across it. Maybe you've been searching for a while now for something that finally makes sense of why some people break through and others stay stuck. Whatever brought you here, you are in the right place. The book you are about to hear was written in 1910 by a man named Wallace D. Wattles, a man most people have never heard of, a man who spent decades in struggle, in poverty, in searching, before he finally found the answer he had been looking for. And then he wrote it down. He called it The Science of Getting Rich. Not motivation, not inspiration. Science, laws, principles, a specific way of thinking and acting that, when followed, produces wealth as predictably as a mathematical formula produces a correct answer. Bold? Absolutely. True? Keep listening. You have the right to be rich. Let's get one thing straight from the beginning. Wanting to be rich is not shallow. It is not greedy. It is not something you need to apologize for or whisper about or dress up in nicer language. Wattles says it plainly. It is not possible to live a really complete or successful life unless one is rich, not comfortable, not okay, complete. Think about what a truly full life actually requires. For your body, good food, real rest, freedom from the kind of exhausting grind that leaves nothing left of you by evening. For your mind, books, travel, time to think, space to grow, exposure to ideas that stretch you beyond where you currently are. For your soul, love, the ability to give, to contribute, to show up fully for the people who matter to you. All of it costs something. All of it requires resources, and resources require wealth. Wattles understood this not as a compromise, but as a truth. Body, mind, soul, all three deserve to be fully fed. Cut any one of them short, and the whole life shrinks. Now here is where it gets interesting. That hunger inside you, that restlessness, that feeling that there's more available to you than what you currently have. Wattles does not call that a problem. He calls the desire for a richer, fuller, more abundant life. And he says that desire is praiseworthy. It is not ego. It is not greed. It is life itself pressing against its own edges, seeking more room, seeking fuller expression. The person who feels no hunger for more, Wattles says, is not humble. They are simply not fully alive. So before we go any further, give yourself permission to want more, permission to pursue it seriously, permission to believe that a bigger, richer, freer life is not reserved for other people. It is available to you, not someday, not if circumstances change. Now, through the application of specific principles that do not care about your background, your education, your current bank account, or the family you were born into. That is the promise of this book. And Wattles does not make it lightly. Here is a question Wattles starts with. Look around you. Same city, same economy, same opportunities available to everyone on the street. And yet, one person builds wealth, and the person right next to them stays poor. Why? It is not talent, Plenty of brilliant people are broke. It is not hard work. The hardest working people on earth are often the least wealthy. It is not education or connections or even starting capital. So what is it? Wattles lands on one answer. Clean, simple, uncompromising. Getting rich is a result of doing things in a certain way. That is it. That is the whole secret wrapped in one sentence. Not a certain type of person, not a certain industry or city or moment in history. A certain way, a way of thinking, a way of acting, a way of moving through the world. And here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. If getting rich comes from doing things in a certain way, and if the same causes always produce the same effects, then anyone who learns that way can get rich. Anyone. The law does not check your resume. It does not ask where you grew up. It does not care how many times you have failed before. Talented people get rich by it. People with no obvious talent get rich by it. People who start with nothing get rich by it. The law is completely, ruthlessly impartial. You may be the poorest person listening to this right now. Deeply in debt, no connections, no clear path forward. Wattles says, begin doing things in a certain way. And you must begin to get rich. Not might, not probably. Must, like causes must produce like effects. That is not wishful thinking. That is how laws work. Now the voice in the back of your head speaks up. Sure, laws, principles, very inspiring. But you do not understand my situation. The system is rigged. Opportunity has been locked up by people with money and power. The deck was stacked before I even sat down at the table. Wattles heard this argument. He takes it seriously, and then he dismantles it. No man is kept poor because opportunity has been taken away from him, not because the world is perfectly fair. It is not. Not because powerful people do not have advantages. They do. But because the source of real wealth is not something that can be cornered, monopolized, or fenced off. Everything visible in this world, every product, every building, every dollar, came from one original invisible substance, a substance that fills the universe, that is limitless, that no one owns. Nature, Waddle says, is an inexhaustible storehouse of riches. The supply will never run short. No man is poor because nature is poor. If individuals are poor, it is because they have not yet learned a certain way of drawing from that limitless supply. This is not a small idea. Sit with it for a moment. The wealth available in this universe is not a fixed pie that shrinks every time someone else takes a slice. It is an expanding ocean, and the way to your share of it is not to fight others for what already exists, but to learn how to cause new things to be created, not competition. Creation, that distinction is everything. Now we reach the foundation. Everything in this book, every chapter, every instruction, every principle, rests on one single idea. Get this idea, really get it, and the rest of the book will click into place like a key turning a lock. Here it is. The universe is made of one original substance. That substance is alive. It thinks. And when a thought is impressed upon it clearly, purposefully, and with faith, that substance begins to move toward the creation of the thing that was thought. The world you see around you, every form, every structure, every living thing, is thought made visible. The universe itself is at its deepest level, a thinking process. And here's where you come in. You are a thinking center. You can originate thought. And if you can communicate your thought to the original thinking substance of the universe, you can cause the creation of the thing you think about. That is not magic. Wattles does not present it as magic. He presents it as science. The same kind of impersonal, reliable, repeatable science as any other law of nature. He puts it in 3 statements. And he repeats them throughout this book like a drumbeat, because he wants them to become part of how you see the world. There's a thinking substance from which all things are made. A thought held in that substance produces the form of the thought, and a person who impresses their thought upon it can cause what they think about to be created. Read those 3 statements again, slowly. They are the engine of everything that follows. Now, the practical question. How do you think in a way that actually impresses this substance and sets creation in motion? You must learn to think truth regardless of appearances. This is harder than it sounds. When the bank account is low, the mind wants to think about scarcity. When the doors seem closed, the mind wants to think about limitation. The appearances of poverty pull the mind toward poverty, and a mind shaped by poverty creates more poverty. To look at the appearances of lack and choose instead to hold the thought of abundance. This requires real power, real discipline. But the person who develops this power, Wattles says, becomes a mastermind. Someone who can have whatever they want. Someone who is no longer at the mercy of circumstances, because they have learned to create circumstances. God wants you to be rich. There's a belief, quiet, deep, inherited from generations of religious conditioning, that wanting wealth is somehow spiritually suspect, that God is better pleased by sacrifice than success. That poverty is noble and riches are dangerous. Wattles is done with that idea. Get rid of the last trace of the belief that there is a God whose purposes are served by keeping you poor. The intelligence at the heart of this universe is not a force of limitation. It is a force of life. And the nature of life, in every seed, in every growing thing, in every living creature, is to expand, to become more, to seek fuller expression. That same impulse lives in you. The hunger for more is not a character flaw. It is the universe itself, seeking to express itself more completely through you. Wattles says it directly. It is a desire of God that you should get rich, because when you have the means to live fully, the universe can express itself more fully through your life. But there is a line here, and Wattles draws it clearly. You do not want wealth to simply consume. You do not want it to outshine others, to dominate, to accumulate for the sake of accumulation. You want it to live, to grow, to love generously, to contribute, to perform every function, physical, mental, spiritual, that you are capable of performing. That is the life that wealth serves. And there is one more crucial principle here, one that separates the science Wattles teaches from the ruthless world of competition. The formless substance will not take things away from someone else and give them to you. It does not work that way. It creates new things. It opens new channels. It brings increase to all. You are become a creator, not a competitor, not taking a bigger slice, expanding the whole table. How the money actually comes. Now the practical person asks, okay, thinking substance, creative mind, Vision and faith. Fine, but how does the money actually show up in my life? Wattles is ready for this question. He does not tell you that money will materialize out of thin air. He does not promise that your desires will appear in a room where you sit, conjured from nothing. What he tells you is this: the thinking substance works through existing channels, through the normal flow of commerce, trade, and human interaction. It influences the minds of people, sometimes people far away, sometimes strangers you have never met, and moves them toward actions that result in what you need arriving at your door. You do not manage this process. You do not see it happening. You simply hold your vision with certainty, act with purpose, and trust that the intelligence of the universe is arranging things on your behalf. He tells a story here that is worth remembering. A poor man renting a small house, barely getting by day to day. He was told, form a clear mental picture of what you want and begin living in a certain way. He was so conditioned by years of scarcity that the biggest thing he could bring himself to ask for was a small rug and a coal stove. He followed the instructions. Within a few months, he had both, and then something shifted in him. He realized he had thought too small. He had shrunk his vision down to the size of his fear. So he went through the house room by room and built in his mind the home he truly wanted. Every detail, every improvement. He held that picture. He believed it. He moved toward it. He owns that house now, and he is building it exactly as he imagined. The lesson is not just about houses. The lesson is stop asking for the rug when you could ask for the house. Ask largely. Live inside your vision before it exists outside of you. Claim it as already yours. And then watch how life begins to rearrange itself around that claim. Vision, faith, creative thought, action. All of it is real. All of it works. But there's a thread that runs through every single part of the system. And without it, the whole thing unravels. That thread is gratitude. Wattles does not present gratitude as a feel-good practice. He presents it as a law, the law of gratitude, as real and as binding as gravity. Here is why it matters so much. The mind that is genuinely grateful is a mind fixed on good things, on what is working, on what is coming, on the abundance that already exists around it. And a mind fixed on good things draws more good things toward it. Just as naturally as a radio tuned to a certain frequency picks up that signal. But the moment your mind shifts, the moment you begin dwelling on what is wrong, what is missing, what is unfair, you tune yourself to a different frequency entirely. And the movement of good things toward you slows, stops, reverses. Here is the practical instruction. Be grateful continuously, not just for the big things, for everything, the small progress, the unexpected help, the door that opened even slightly, the idea that arrived at the right moment. Fix your attention on the best in every situation, and you will tend to become the best. Dwell on the worst, and you will tend to attract more of it. This is not positive thinking for its own sake. This is you staying connected by gratitude to the source that creates everything you want. And there is one more gift that gratitude gives you. Faith is born of gratitude. The grateful mind expects good things, and expectation, steady, deep, unshaken expectation, becomes a very faith that causes creation to move toward you. Gratitude and faith are not separate things. One feeds the other endlessly. Most people want things, but wanting is not enough. Wanting is vague. Wanting is passive. Wanting says it would be nice if. Wattles is asking for something sharper than that. You must form a clear and definite mental picture of what you want, not a category, not a general direction. A picture, specific, detailed, vivid enough that you could walk into it. Think of it like a ship's captain. He does not sail toward the general direction of the port. He knows exactly which port. He keeps his compass in front of him and his face turned toward that destination every single hour of the journey. Your vision is your compass, and you do not put it down. But Wattles makes a distinction here that separates the people who get results from the people who just dream. A dreamer sees a vision. Nothing stands behind it. What needs to stand behind it is purpose, the firm decision to make it real. And behind purpose must stand faith, the unshakable inner knowing that what you want is already yours, already in motion, already on its way, live in the new house mentally before it exists physically, where the clothes, take the trip, hold your vision so consistently, with so much gratitude and certainty, that the thought of it becomes more real to you than the appearances around you. That is not delusion. That is the creative process working. And here's the thing about prayer that Wattles says that most religious traditions miss. The answer to prayer, he says, is not according to your faith while you are talking. It is according to your faith while you are working, not the Sunday morning hour of sincere words, and then forgetting it for the rest of the week. A continuous, living, working faith held through every ordinary moment of the day. That is what moves mountains. There is a misunderstanding about willpower that trips up almost everyone who tries to apply these principles. People think willpower is a force to be aimed outward, at the world, at obstacles, at other people. Wattles says, no, absolutely not. You have no right to use your will upon another person, even for their own good, not by force, not by manipulation, not by mental pressure. The science of getting rich does not require you to push, coerce, or overpower anyone. In fact, any attempt to use your will on others will only work against you. So what is willpower actually for? It is for you. Only you. Use it to keep yourself thinking in the right way when doubt creeps in. Use it to hold your vision when appearances are discouraging. Use it to stay on course when competitive, fearful, scarcity-minded part of your brain wants to take over. Keep your mind at home. Direct it. Discipline it. That is a legitimate and powerful use of will. And here's the warning Wattles issues with the seriousness of someone who has watched many people fail at this exact point. Doubt is not harmless. Every hour spent in worry, every moment of genuine unbelief, does not simply pause your progress. It reverses it. It sends a current moving away from you through the thinking substance. It cancels what your faith has been building. So guard your mind, not with anxiety, with intention. When doubt arrives, do not fight it or panic. Simply return. Return to the vision. Return to the gratitude. Return to the certainty that the law is working whether you can see it or not. The law does not need your fear. It needs your faith. What you feed your mind matters. Do not tell stories about your past financial struggles. Do not replay the times you failed. Do not remind yourself or others of the poverty you came from or the hardships you endured. This is not about pretending those things did not happen. It is about understanding what constantly rehearsing them does to the mind that needs to create a different future. Every time you tell the story of your limitation, you become it again. You mentally place yourself back inside it, and you check the flow of better things moving in your direction. Wattles says it without softening. Put poverty and everything that pertains to it completely behind you. Now, someone always pushes back here, but what about the people still suffering? Should I just ignore them? Is that not heartless? Wattles anticipated this. His answer is surprising and worth sitting with. The poor do not need your sympathy and your suffering on their behalf. They need inspiration. What lifts people out of poverty is not the knowledge that others feel bad about their situation. It is the vision of another possibility, a living demonstration that the way out exists. The best thing you can do for anyone struggling is get rich yourself by the creative method and then show them how. Your success, built through these principles, is not a selfish act. It is a gift to every person watching you. This is the chapter where a lot of people who've been nodding along suddenly get uncomfortable, because Wattles is about to say something that the purely spiritual crowd does not always want to hear. Thought is a creative power, but thought alone will not make you rich. You must act. He is blunt about it. The gold in the mountains will not mine itself, refine itself, and find its way to your pocket. The thinking substance works through existing channels, through commerce, through human hands, through the normal machinery of the world. And for it to work through you, you must be in motion. By thought, the thing you want is brought to you. By action, you receive it. And the action must happen now, not when you are in a better situation, not when you have more resources, not when the circumstances feel more favorable. Now, where you are, with what you have, you cannot act in the past. You cannot act in the future. You can only act in the present moment. And this present moment, right here, right now, is the only place where wealth is ever actually built. Do not sit down and wait for your vision to manifest. If you do, Wattles says plainly, you will never get results. Act, and act now. Do not do more. Do better. Here's a mistake almost every ambitious person makes at some point. They think the answer is more. More hours, more hustle, more tasks, more output. Push harder, move faster, do everything. Wattles says, slow down, not because rest is more valuable than effort, but because the quality of each action matters infinitely more than the quantity of actions taken. Every act is in itself either a success or failure. Every inefficient act, no matter how many of them you stack up, is still failure. And a life full of inefficient acts is a failed life, no matter how busy it looks from the outside. The question is never how much you did. The question is whether what you did was done with full presence, full faith, full purpose behind it. So here's the instruction. Do all that can be done today, not tomorrow's work, not next week's ambitions, today's work, and do each piece of it as well as it can possibly be done. Put your whole self into it. Hold your vision while you work. Bring the power of your purpose into even the most ordinary task. When you do this, every act becomes success in itself, and success builds on success. The momentum compounds. Wattles calls it this simply. Successful action is cumulative in its results. One strong, efficient, faithful act opens a door to the next, and the next opens the one after that. That is how wealth is actually built, not in one dramatic moment, in the quiet accumulation of well-done days. The right work for you. Can you get rich in any business or only in the right one? Wattles says both things are true, and the tension between them is worth understanding. Yes, you can get rich in any business. The law does not discriminate by industry. People build wealth in every field imaginable. The principles work regardless of what you are selling or building or creating. But you will get rich most easily in the work that uses your strongest natural abilities. And you will get rich most satisfyingly in the work you actually want to do. Here is the deeper principle. Desire is a manifestation of power. The fact that you strongly want to do something is not random. It is not a cruel joke the universe is playing on you, giving you a dream you cannot reach. It is evidence. Evidence that the power to do that thing already exists inside you, waiting to be developed. Where there is genuine desire, real, persistent, burning desire, there's always a corresponding capacity. You do not hunger for what you are incapable of. So do not dismiss what you want to do as impractical or unrealistic. Start there. Build there. The work you love is the most natural channel through which your creative power will flow. And when you are unsure, when the path is not clear and the choices feel overwhelming, do not rush. On the creative plane, and this is one of the most counterintuitive things Wattles says, there is never any hurry. There is no shortage of opportunity. No one is going to take your place before you get there. When one door closes, a better one opens. Always, when in doubt, return to your vision, deepen your gratitude, and wait with confidence for clarity to come. Every living thing is driven by one fundamental desire. More life, more growth, more expression, more of whatever is and can become. This is not philosophy. This is the operating system of the universe. Every creature, every plant, every person moves instinctively toward increase. And because of this, people are magnetically drawn to whoever makes them feel that being around that person means more for them, more possibility, more energy, more life. Wattles calls this the impression of increase, and he says it is the key to every relationship, every transaction, every interaction you will ever have in the pursuit of wealth. When you are working in a certain way, when your vision is clear and your faith is real and your gratitude is deep, you become a center from which increase radiates outward. People feel it when they are near you. They cannot always name it, but they feel pulled toward you. They want to do business with you. They want to bring you opportunities. Every transaction you enter, give more in genuine value than you take in money. Every person you meet, leave them with more than they brought to the encounter, not as a strategy, as a way of being. But Wattles adds a warning here, a sharp one. Beware the desire for power over others. It is one of the most seductive traps on the path to wealth. The hunger to be above, to dominate, to be seen as more than. This is a competitive mind at its most dangerous, and it will pull you off the creative plane the moment you let it take hold. The person who gets rich in order to rule others will find that their wealth is unstable, their relationships hollow, and their success deeply unsatisfying. The person who gets rich in order to give more, create more, and live more fully, that person builds something that lasts. What I want for myself, I want for everybody. That is the whole philosophy in one line. Waddle stops here to say something that needs to be said clearly. This is not just for the business owner, not just for the entrepreneur, not just for the person who already has some capital and some connections and some room to maneuver. This is for the doctor, the teacher, the preacher, the factory worker, the person who right now is sitting in a job they did not choose, in a life that feels several sizes too small. The law works for all of them equally. The physician who holds a clear vision of herself as a great healer and acts toward that vision with faith and gratitude will draw patients in a way that no amount of marketing could explain. The teacher who carries the energy of a person going somewhere cannot help transferring that energy to every student in the room. The worker on the floor who does every task with excellence, with purpose, with the quiet certainty of someone moving toward bigger life. That worker will not stay where they are for long, not because someone will necessarily notice and reward them, but because the intelligence that runs this universe will open doors. It must. That is how the law works. There is nothing in your circumstances that can permanently hold you down. Not the company you work for, not the economy, not the neighborhood you grew up in, not the family you came from, not the mistakes you have made. Begin moving in a certain way, and you will begin to rise. There will be moments when things do not go as planned, deals that fall apart, opportunities that close, efforts that seem to produce nothing. What do you do then? Wattles says, do not be disappointed, not because failure does not hurt, but because what looks like failure from the inside is very often something different entirely. He tells of a man who worked for weeks toward a particular business deal. Everything pointed toward it. He put his faith and effort behind it fully, and at the critical moment, it collapsed inexplicably, as if some invisible force had simply said no. He did not despair. He thanked God genuinely, not sarcastically, that the deal had been prevented. He kept going. Within weeks, an opportunity arrived that was so much better than the first that he would not have traded it for anything. And he understood then, a mind that knew more than he knew had kept him from getting tangled in something smaller, so that he would be free for something greater. This is not a comforting story to tell yourself when things go wrong. It is a principle to hold on to. Every seeming failure carries within it the seeds of a greater success. If you keep your faith, maintain your gratitude, and continue acting in a certain way. And when you feel like you have failed, Wattles says one more thing worth carrying with you. You have not asked for enough. Keep going and ask for more. Wattles ends a book the same way he has returned to it, again and again, throughout every chapter, with the principles stated plainly. No decoration, no softening. There's a thinking substance from which all things are made. A thought impressed upon that substance produces a form of the thought, and a person who learns to impress their thoughts upon it with clarity, with purpose, with faith, can cause the things they think about to be created. To do this, You must move from a competitive mind to the creative mind. You must form a clear picture of what you want and hold it with unwavering purpose and faith. You must cultivate deep, continuous gratitude that keeps you connected to the source of all wealth. You must act every day fully, efficiently, giving more value than you take from every person you encounter. Do this, and getting rich becomes not a hope, not a gamble, not a matter of luck or timing or who you know. It becomes a mathematical certainty. The riches you receive will be in exact proportion to the definiteness of your vision, the fixity of your purpose, the steadiness of your faith, and the depth of your gratitude. That is the whole science in 4 things: vision, purpose, faith, gratitude. You have just heard The Science of Getting Rich, a book written in 1910 by a man who spent most of his life in struggle before he found what he was looking for, who wrote it plainly, without poetry or performance, because he wanted it to actually work for the person who read it. It has never gone out of print, not because it is comfortable reading, not because it tells you everything will be easy, but because what it describes is real, and somewhere in the mind of every person who has ever read it, something recognizes that. So let us hold the whole thing in a single breath before we go. You are not here by accident. The hunger in you for a bigger life is not a mistake. The universe is not indifferent to what you want. It is made of a substance that responds to thought, your thought. When that thought is clear, purposeful, grateful, and backed by real action. You do not need to fight anyone for what you want. You do not need to take from anyone. You are here to create, to add to the world, to expand the sum of life available to everyone around you. Think in a certain way. Act in a certain way. Give more than you take. Stay grateful. Hold the vision. Keep going even when the evidence says stop. And then watch. Not with anxiety. Not with grasping. With the quiet, settled confidence of someone who understands how the law works. The things you want are already moving toward you. Now go meet them.